David Bowie, one of the most artistic, brave, and adventurous artists.
He was a musical chameleon.
The most important and influential artist since the Beatles.
David Bowie made the 70s and invented the 80s.
11 UK #1 albums, 6 Grammy Awards, 4 Brit Awards, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Bowie transcended music, art and fashion.
Under the moonlight, the serious moonlight.
Chubby little loser.
Funny little fat man.
Welcome to the Guardians of the Vinyl Vault. 4 old friends, 1 sacred vault, and a lineup of artists awaiting judgment.
Welcome to the Guardians of the Vinyl Vault. I'm introducing it this week, and this week, Rodney is going to give us his choice.
Thank you, Gareth. Really quite well done, by the way.
Well, I completely disagree, Rodney. Your job's safe.
Stephen.
Your job's completely
Thanks,
safe.
Stephen.
Particularly,
Who is it, Rodney?
Well, tonight I've got a very serious job.
Oh,
I know, Stephen, there's no messing around with this one, is there? I'm not so good.
he thought Stephen was going to mention the soft pink jumper. Then I think
I was going to mention the soft pink jumper, but power's gone to his head, Rodney. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you might have found the artist I'm advocating for tonight dressed in pink in his pink phase, maybe. But I'm advocating for David Robert Jones, otherwise known as David Bowie. And I think if there's anybody who is platinum plus, gold encrusted, it is this man. It is this man. Now, I don't know about you boys, but I don't think I really understood or even knew about Bowie until he went through that singles period in the 80s. So, like Let's Dance and songs like that. And then after that, I was listening to the likes of the Tin Machine. But if you go back to him, I think his upbringing and what he was doing through the 60s and 70s show him to be somebody who was probably one of the most artistic and brave and adventurous artists that this country has ever actually produced.
You make a good point, Rodney, because despite the aged nature of us four in our mid-50s, he wasn't really our generation, was he? Because we grew up in we aged into the early 80s and mid 80s, and he'd already become a megastar in the 70s, hadn't he?
But he
really was.
Touched in the 80s was like we came across him in duets more, to tell you the truth.
True.
No. I my first recollection was Let's Dance.
Let's Dance, yeah.
I mean, let's face it, it's still one of my favorite songs.
Under the moonlight, the serious moonlight,
because I just love the song. And Nile Rodgers is connected to that song, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
He is, yeah. Yes. I had that on 45, and I probably bought it in Sounds Record Shop. And that I don't know if it was MTV age, but there was something about the production of that. And
it's a superb video. A superb video.
Brilliant video.
Yeah,
but that's...
Yeah, but then he was also good fun as well. Like you remember Dancing in the Streets with Mick Jagger, the two of them.
Yeah, but that's later on, Gareth.
That's later.
85, 86.
But I'm talking about whenever we start to experience them.
You're meant to be in charge of this. We gave you the leadership responsibility, and you've ruined it for everybody.
Rodney,
David Bowie fans, Gareth, would be aghast.
I know.
If you were highlighting the street.
I'm going to highlight also his Christmas with Bing Crosby. His song as well.
Yeah.
Is a personal favorite of mine.
Who is the one?
Rodney, go ahead.
Go on, Pink Jumper. You just put out for a wee while. So the thing about it is that we were too young to know him through the Ziggy Stardust sort of period. And I wasn't until probably I was late 80s at university, and I picked up some of that stuff. And I started to understand, what was this all about? How come he was David Bowie, but he was Ziggy Stardust? And even to this day, I sort of don't get it. But that to me showed how abstract he was, how different he was, that he had this persona, and he completely embraced it, and went all the way through the 70s. But it was always a very individual sound with Bowie. He made genre. He defined genre,
He was a
and
chameleon. He was a musical chameleon.
he
Yeah.
was. But you know the thing about him, Richard, is with all that backdrop, right? When you and we often talk about Live Aid, but I'm going to bring it up, right? He didn't take himself so seriously that he wouldn't do Live Aid and he wouldn't do the track with Mick Jagger. A lot of people would have turned around and said, "What are you doing that for? You're cheapening your image." He was confident in what he was and his image and happy to embrace that, and he knew how to actually write and perform a pop song. Absolutely did. And then I remember buying the album Tim from the band Tim Machine. And again, it was a wonderful, it's a wonderful album cover, black and white, and it was with a band, you know. And he created this band, and Tin Machine was this hard edge rock, David Bowie, and it was brilliant, you know. It was like it wasn't quite Nirvana of the day.
It didn't work for me. I tried it, but to me, my love of Bowie was, as we all were in the 80s. I loved Let's Dance, Modern Love. Modern Love is a brilliant song. Blue
It's a
Jean,
brilliant song.
Take me
Heroes.
to the church
Blue Jean,
on
the Blue Jean,
time.
Blue Jean
Oh,
video,
Genie.
Faces
going
a
back to the
mess.
70s.
Here you
But
are. You are.
but then you know, but
Absolute
again,
beginners.
this
No.
this
Anyone?
comes
No.
later on in the 80s. But
Yeah.
Patsy Kensit it in the film,
Yeah.
the film. But of
Yeah.
course, but then of course, actually, some of his finest stuff is the stuff that we're not particularly familiar with, unless Stephen's researched it. But Life on Mars, Ground
Oh.
Control to Major Tom, that, and then that song, the construction of that song in the way that it changes throughout, a bit like Bohemian Rhapsody,
Yeah.
goes through different levels. I think that's probably a masterpiece, but we probably discovered that later on in life. But then the real Bowie fans will love the earlier albums, probably the ones that I'm not too familiar with.
You make
Well,
you make an excellent point, Richard. It's rare, as you know, as we've said before, but we entered the Bowie superstardom at a period, I suppose, around about 82, 83, when we were becoming music connoisseurs.
Yeah.
We couldn't have been music connoisseurs in the 70s. We were far too young.
Yeah.
But Rodney used the word persona. Bowie had multiple personas long before we were ever even knew what pop music was. He had Major Tom, he had Ziggy Stardust, he had Aladdin Sane, he had his soul phase with the young Americans. The thin white Duke. He had his Berlin phase with Iggy and Lou with We Could Be Heroes.
Just for one day.
One day. And then he had his 80s period. But he had about 5, 6, 7 careers long before we ever became familiar with him.
You know what?
Each one of those could be worthy of entry to the vinyl vault.
Exactly, that's Stephen. And
the
the body of work is almost so massive that unless you went through with it, it's hard to get your head, ears, whatever around it. It's absolutely huge. I mean, Gareth likes to stat 100 million worldwide record sales, and he achieved 11 UK number one albums, 11 UK number ones, and his UK US number one singles included Fame. There you go. We haven't talked about that one. Ashes to Ashes, we talked about. Under Pressure with Queen, and actually that Under Pressure with Queen was at an interesting time for both bands. But what I liked about that is his style cut through the Queen thing, you know, and it absolutely blended, but also was a sort of at a juncture with them. And Rolling Stone ranked him among the greatest singers, songwriters, and artists of all time. And the thing I liked about Bowie was he created an uncomfortableness. He created a mistake. You didn't know what he was. You didn't know if he was Ziggy Stardust. You didn't know if he was David Bowie. You didn't know if he was a gay, straight, whatever. He was, and that didn't matter. But he just was Bowie. He just was him, and he was comfortable.
Actually, when we were familiar with him, probably we've done Bruce Springsteen in the previous episode. That probably Bowie fans see that Let's Dance period is the kind of born in the USA kind of thing. I think there's a lot of similarities in that era because that got him, into the pop charts. They probably feel that in some ways that's not the real Bowie. He's on MTV. He's Let's Dance, Blue
Richard,
Jean, Modern Love.
There's a key difference, though. I think your analysis is correct for Springsteen. He was quite big, might even be averagely big before Born in the USA. Bowie was huge long before Let's Dance. With Major Tom, with Ziggy Stardust, with the Young Americans, the Thin White Duke era, where that one didn't quite work so much for me. Maybe too many thin white lines than Thin White Duke. But I think he became an idol for the 80s because of things like Let's Dance, because of things like Heroes, which was probably Modern Love. But he was massive way, way, way before that.
Yeah.
So
one question for you guys. Who did he co-write Fame with?
Oh, I don't know, actually.
Are you guys, is this your segue into Nile Rodgers?
No.
Right.
Go on then.
Oh, you've got us all here.
John Lennon.
Oh,
you're right. Well done, Gareth.
And that was his first US #1 single.
Was it?
Was it?
Yeah.
That's a surprise, isn't it? That it was his first.
1975, and guitarist Carlos Alomar. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But I think with Bowie, I don't think we've had an artist in the UK, a UK artist of his type, really, in some ways, because he was a classic. He did film. He did art. And
Labyrinth.
That's right.
And he pushed. I mean, he was pushing his genre right almost up to his death. Actually,
he was very good. He was very good in extras with Ricky Gervais as well.
Oh, he was excellent. Excellent.
And he did have a sense of humor. For this very serious, character, he did have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
I was bringing up there, Gareth, how many albums he sold. I think the number was about 100 million.
100 million, yeah.
And the
not
the
good
number
enough for you. Apparently, whenever you compared to Depeche Mode,
you made it up. You made it because 100 million just sounds good. You made it up.
Actually, Stephen has just actually reminded me that scene in Extras where he's in that place and everybody's adoring him, and then Ricky Gervais, who thinks he's made it big, is in the VIP area, and then Bowie suddenly comes up, "Chubby little loser," and that comes over that
funny little fat man.
It's absolutely brilliant, and you can feel him just.
I've seen a couple of interviews or podcasts with Ricky Gervais on it, and apparently the story goes, and we're using this story in our podcast that Ricky Gervais has already told several times. Apparently, David Bowie was a bit of a fan of Ricky Gervais, so they sort of got together, and David Bowie basically said, "I'd like to do something with you. That would be really good if it could be on one of your shows." And apparently Ricky Gervais went, "Yeah, that would be really good. We could have you on, and you could do a song like something like, I don't know, Space Oddity." And he went, "Yeah, because I can knock together a Space Oddity in a couple of minutes, can't I?"
So just to talk about him as the artist, he had leading roles in films like The Man Who Fell to Earth in 76.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence in 83. Labyrinth in 86. He was in Twin Peaks Firewalk with me in 92.
Absolute Beginners.
Was he in Absolute Beginners?
No,
He just do the songs for Absolute Beginners.
He did the song for.
Right. Okay.
And this is an interesting thing that I thought also. He was a painter, a writer, and he also created his own celebrity Bond called Bowie Bonds, and was one of the first artists to engage with fans directly through his website Bowie Net. So the fact is the guy was innovative constantly, whether it was artistic or whether it was technology. And Gareth, you do like a stat, so we'll just go over it. 100 million sales worldwide of albums. He achieves 11 UK number one albums. And he also is recipient of numerous accolades, including 6 Grammy Awards, 4 Brit Awards. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in '96. And after his death in 2016, they released 26. He did 26 studio albums, 9 live albums, 2 soundtrack albums, 26 compilation albums, 8 extended plays, 128 singles, and 6 box sets during his life between 1947 and 2016. And since his death, there's been 1 further studio album, 13 live albums, 1 soundtrack album, 1 compilation album, 4 extended plays, and 6 box sets albums.
And also
28 video albums, 72 music videos. I mean, the stats just go on.
I mean,
and
and
on.
also, when he knew that he was terminally ill, he released
Black Star.
the Black Star album,
Yeah.
and the videos that he released at that point as well were almost like mini films and very poignant as well, because he was beginning to look a little bit obviously ill. And he was making videos about basically knowing that he was near the end of his life. And, again, a highly acclaimed album, Black Star. I don't own it, and I can't say I've listened to it, because I think, like a lot of artists, this is what we haven't given it this kind of tilt. But Bowie was his earlier albums were extremely good. We obviously knew the Let's Dance area. I feel that a bit like Prince, he kind of, towards the end of his career, it was a bit more hit and miss. But I don't think we should hold that too much against him. I feel he's got enough going on there. And then, Black Star was highly acclaimed at the end of his career. So that's the way he would have liked it.
2 days after the release of Black Star.
Right.
No, I just want to bring out what other people wrote of him, and the press, for example, and other people, music. So the Guardian in 1980 said he was the most important and influential artist since the Beatles. Billboard argued that Bowie influenced more musical genre than any other rock star, from glam rock, folk rock, hard rock to electronic, industrial rock, and synth pop to even hip hop and indie rock. The New York Times said that Bowie transcended music, art, and fashion, and introduced his influences to Philadelphia funk, to Japanese fashion, German electronica, and drum and bass dance music. And Neil McCormick, who, Stephen, I think you follow a bit, of the Daily Telegraph, stated that Bowie had one of the supreme careers in popular music, art, and culture of the 20th century, and he was too inventive, too mercurial, too strange for all but his devoted fans to keep up with him. I think that's the point. There was just so much going on.
I agree with you, but that's the best. This is why we are deemed as being independent. I don't think here we can all sit here and say we were massive fans of David Bowie. We were fans of many singles, and for me, I was a little bit different. I loved the Absolute Beginners, the Bing Crosby, the Let's Dance. Like see that little drummer boy with Bing Crosby. That is my favorite Christmas song, apart from Last Christmas, obviously.
Obviously,
more than anything, and I liked all those type of songs. Or I love Dancing in the Street, with Mick Jagger, where they made fun of themselves.
Oh, that's the cheesiness. That's Gareth's
exactly.
cheesiness.
I love that cheesiness, but I was not a massive David Bowie fan, but our role as Guardians of the Vinyl Vault is to analyze this data, the songs, etc., and go, does he get in? And for me, he gets in as platinum status, not from my own personal view, but as an independent Guardian of the Final
Well,
Vault.
let me give you Rodney's listed some very illuminating quotes. Let me give you another one. This one's from Stephen Moore, Guardians of the Final Vault.
There we
And
go.
this one says David Bowie made the 70s and invented the 80s. And why do I say that? Well, they made the 70s is relatively obvious. Ziggy Stardust, Aladdin Sane, the Young Americans period, Heroes, the Berlin phase with Ziggy and Lou Reed. I would contend the 80s would not have happened in any way, shape, or form, certainly in a UK and European context, without the influence of Bowie. The fashion, the videos, the music. Let me list some of the bands. Gareth, I'm stealing your thunder. Yeah. You're going to have fair warning. Let me list some of the bands that would undoubtedly admit not only were they influenced, but they probably lifted a lot of Bowie's signature themes, be that haircuts, suits, sounds. Duran Duran, Depeche Mode, The Cure, Spandau, Human League, and the list could go on and on.
U2.
U2, absolutely. There is barely a band who were not huge between 1980 and 1989 that didn't get massive, enormous inspiration from Bowie, who carried on through the 80s, but I would argue that his influence in the 80s was of a greater magnitude than his own individual contribution. He has got to be. There is no such status as Rodney tried to invent as platinum with diamonds on it or whatever. He is undoubtedly the biggest artist, the most important artist, the most fantastic influence we have ever considered. He's got to be platinum, or else I'm getting my coat and I'm going home.
Well, I'm gonna leave you with a couple of quotes. So John Peel said before Bowie came along, people didn't want too much change. Then Bowie subverted the whole notion of what it was to be a rock star. Jeff Buckley said, Bowie, both star and icon, vast body of work, has created perhaps the biggest cult in popular culture. His influence has been unique in popular culture. He has permeated and altered more lives than any comparable figure. The BBC's Mark Easton argued that Bowie provided the fuel for the creative powerhouse that Britain has become, and also the way that Britain actually sees itself culturally and from a fashion point of view. The Culture Show, BBC's Culture Show, said every band or solo artist who's decided to rip up their playbook and start again owes a debt to David Bowie. So I just think, it's a shame. It's one of those things where you think, I'd almost want to go through everything from start to finish and just have a David Bowie day of listening to everything almost in chronological order, because I feel like somebody who's dipped into different parts and I'm not seeing the whole thing, and that's why I wanted to advocate him tonight.
Is it even worth giving Richard a vote? Richard, is it worth you voting, or are you just...
I think we need to let him say what Richard.
No, he's got to have a say.
No, I think it's. I think I agree with everything that Stephen said. I think it's got to be platinum for me.
Right, Gareth.
And here I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish with the trivia question. So we're all agreed. It's got to be platinum. And in fact, let's just have a 3-second pause so that we can insert Rage and the Hallelujahs. Right. In that case, here's a trivia question for you. What was unusual about David Bowie's facial appearance? No, nobody.
High cheekbones.
No. Both his eyes were different colors.
Yes.
Have a look at a picture. I think one's blue and one's green or grey. I'm not sure, but yeah, both his eyes were different colors.
By the way, can you still hear me? Okay, is that?
Yeah. We obviously wish we couldn't, but we can. Carry on.
I've got a great little anecdote to finish off. several years ago, we were in Padstow for the first time, and we went to Rick Stein's seafood restaurant, which is near the front.
Yeah.
He was skiing in the last episode, and now he's dining out in Rick Stein's seafood restaurant in this one. It's marvelous what you can do when you run Universal Credit. But carry on.
Pause, Stephen, please. Anyway, we were in this restaurant, and an older waitress served us, like quite a mature lady. And after, I said, "You must have seen a lot of famous people eat in this restaurant over the years." And she went, not really, actually. Or people are not familiar with all these new made in Chelsea or whatever people I don't even know. I'm sorry to disappoint you. And I went, "Oh, okay." Anyway, then she came back to me 10 minutes later, and she said, "Do you know what? I've been thinking about this." And she said, on one night when I was much younger, David Bowie and Iman walked into this restaurant, and she said, "Do you know what? I've never felt such a presence and a change of the mood of the whole restaurant. Everyone looked at them and they just sat down and ate their food." And she says, "That's the people that I will remember most about eating in this restaurant." And I thought that was just a wonderful little story from someone who said, "I don't really remember anyone famous particularly." She said, came in and said, "I do apologize. That really, I remember that night now when they walked in." Because she said she was absolutely stunning and actually overshadowed David Bowie's presence, because she said she was like a goddess.
He did.
I reckon though you could feel the aura of the man when he walked in. I reckon that you could. Anyway, if you're interested, there's a thing called 10 Things You Never Knew About David Bowie. I'm not going to go through them now, but it's quite interesting. A little side note to him, and it adds to the persona in some ways. But there you go. So I think
Rodney, I'm going to have to stop you there. This is not your job on this episode. You cannot conclude it, because, as you know, you have been fired for this episode and somebody else has got the job.
Yes, it is
over
me.
To you.
And I've got the job for this episode, and actually I'll be consulting with you three whether I get it for every episode.
Well, you consult as much as you like. You're definitely
Stephen, he can do the editing then.
Thank you, Rodney, for David Bowie. And I would like all our listeners to like, subscribe, but tell you the truth, the thing we love the most is the comments. Please comment below and give us as much detail as you can on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.